A very good afternoon to all of you. So, good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, Jai Hind. I hope all of you have been doing great. So, in this session now, I'm here before you with the class 7th NCERT. Now, in the previous NCERTs, we have studied about the concept of government, the concept of democracy, and how both of these things have been working in sync in the Indian setup. Now, in this session, we will be introducing the concept of equality in democracy. Now, one thing that I want to make it clear, then that democracy is directly proportional to the concept of equality. What democracy teaches? Democracy says the privilege to be heard. Okay, whether you are in sync or whether you are against the concept, still you are being heard. So, if you are being heard, if everybody is being heard at par with other citizens, then it is something that is promoting equality. Now, our constitution has been guaranteeing equality to all citizens despite the diversities in the lives of people. Now, in India, even though the people have been living a diversified life, but every individual, at least the system, at least the constitution ensures that every individual is at par with one another. Every individual is equal to each other. Okay, even though the practices, the society might undertake some unequal measures, but still the constitution, the state, the government cannot do so. So now the constitution has has adopted different approaches to ensure that equality is executed within the society. Now, in this class 7th NCERT, okay, the social and political life part 2. In this session, first and foremost in today's session, I'll start off with the unit 1, which is equality in the Indian democracy. Okay. Now with this topic, we will be first taking up this topic, unit 1. We will take up unit 2. Okay. Then for a basic clarity, we would also take up the unit 3. Okay. But the next two units, media and markets, okay, they are not essentially around the Indian polity. Okay. The topics are similar to some generic concepts and also things related to Indian economy. So thus we would be skipping these two topics and then we will gradually move on to the continuation of unit 1, which is equality in Indian democracy, the struggles for equality. Clear? So this will be our approach for the class 7th NCERT. Clear? Chaliye. So now let us start off with this topic and let us understand how the Indian constitution ensures the concept of equality for all. Now, when I have to talk about the relevance of this topic. Now, this equality in democracy is essentially a foundational topic. Okay. And this topic has got a huge relevance in prelims plus mains. Now, some 2 years back, there was a question that was first asked in by UPSC in its civil services prelims, and then the question was repeated as it is for the CAPF exam as well as for the CDS exam. Okay. The question was essentially upon a case study. Okay, an individual who was debarred from fetching water from a public well. Okay. Now the question was around that an individual has been debarred from fetching water from a public well. Which amongst the following fundamental rights of this individual have been violated? Okay. Now, even though various students had marked the answer around Article 18 untouchability, but it was essentially a violation of Article 15. Okay. So, our Indian Constitution provides with various specific interventions to address inequalities in the society. Okay. So, I just gave you an example how the questions have been asked previously in the prelims. Moreover, this topic has got high relevance in the mains paper 2 also. Okay. Now, in the GS paper 2 around polity and governance, this again becomes a bedrock of the Indian Constitution. Now, this concept is enshrined in law by moving through various social examples. Okay, and thus this concept of equality becomes non-negotiable for every serious civil services aspirant. Okay, so if we talk about this concept of equality, this concept has found mention in various things. Okay, this concept has found mention in the fundamental rights, okay, in the directive principles of the state policy. Okay, moreover, in fundamental rights, when we talk about Article 14 to 18, okay, in prelims question have been asked directly around this. Okay, moreover, in the mains you need to integrate this idea with the government interventions initiatives that are taking place. Clear? So you need to understand the practical uh, interventions also while you are writing answer for the mains part, because in the mains exam they are not just concerned about the factual knowledge, they do want you to analytically discuss the policy effectiveness, okay, the implementation, the challenges, the judicial interpretations around the topic, around from where the questions have been asked. Clear? So this, needless to say, this is a very sure short topic that is asked in the examination. Clear? Okay. Now, when we discuss about the concept of equality, okay. Now, why this equality is important? The question is, why is equality important? Now, before moving on to the topic, moving on to the essence of this topic, first and foremost, I'll give you a few basic things that you must hold upon while you are reading this topic. Okay. Now, this equality is required essentially to fulfill two key purposes. First, to ensure that an individual lives the life with dignity. Okay. First is this concept. Now, every person deserves respect, every person deserves dignity, because every individual is a human being. Now, Indian Constitution, particularly through the fundamental rights, seeks to ensure this dignity and also ensures that this dignity is protected in all forms of assault, okay, and whether it is any form of socio-economic or political injustices. Clear? Now, it also addresses the discrimination. It also addresses the discrimination. Okay, dignity and an individual must be treated fairly. There must be no arbitrariness. There must be no grounds over which the individual is discriminated. Okay, so our constitution explicitly addresses and prohibits the discrimination on various grounds such as religion, race, caste, gender, place of birth, economic status. Okay, so these all are the things over which the constitution addresses these things. But in our constitution, there have been various inequalities which are also existing. Okay, there have been various inequalities which are also existing, and the foremost and the most prominent amongst these is the caste system. Clear? The caste system. So our society has been sticking to a hierarchical social structure. Okay, and it is traditionally, it had started with the dictation around occupation, then gradually it started dominating the social status. Clear? There have been grounds of religious discrimination. Okay, there have been grounds of religious discrimination. There have been instances wherein individuals or the communities have faced prejudices or disadvantages just because they are born into a specific religion. Clear? In our society, there are still existing gender inequalities. Clear? So there have been disparities in excesses to the men as well as the women. Okay, the social status between of the men and the women have been facing various challenges. Okay, along with this, you can also see that there are regional inequalities. People have been going against each other just because they are belonging to two separate religions, two separate regions. Okay, now in this we can also see that these rigidities or these disparities are primarily in the development and the opportunities across different regions, and this is why people are migrating from one region to the other. Clear? There have been inequalities due to the income. Okay, there have been differences in wealth and the income distribution. Okay, which finally leads to disparities in access to basic necessities, healthcare, as well as the education system in the country. Clear? But the constitution has addressed all of these. Okay, our constitution does not allow these inequalities to settle down in the society, and thus our constitution has addressed all of these things. Okay, now the question comes up as to how the constitution has addressed these things. Okay, so the Indian constitution, when we talk about the Indian constitution, it essentially starts talking about the equality from the preamble itself. Clear? So from the preamble itself, it starts talking about the equality in the society. Clear? It ensures that every citizens have the justice, not just around the society, social, economic, and political justice. They talk about the liberty which are given to all, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. Clear? Along with this, they also talk about equality, equality of status, and equality of opportunity. Clear? So this is the main underlying objective of the government, of the constitution, to ensure these forms of equality, justice, and liberty to all. Clear? Along with this, the constitution also ensures equality through the fundamental rights. Okay, in the fundamental rights, we have seen that fundamental rights are specifically dealing with equality. Clear? We talk about Article 14, equality before law and equal protection of laws. Okay, so equality before law, that has been a British concept, and equal protection of law, which is essentially an American concept. Clear? So it very clearly says that no person is above the law, and it also wants that the government should provide equal treatment of person under equal circumstances. Clear? Then it in the fundamental rights, in the article 15 itself, it calls for prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, gender and the place of birth. Clear? So it is prohibiting the government, prohibiting the state from discriminating against individuals on these 5 grounds. Clear? Then Article 16 talks about equality of opportunity in the public employment. So that is the government jobs, that is the public employment. Clear? So all citizens in matters to public employment are considered equal and they can be appointed to any of these offices. Okay. Along with this, Article 17 talks about the abolition of untouchability. Clear? So it says that abolition of untouchability and forbids the practice of untouchability in any form. Clear? So enforcement of any disability that is uh, enforced upon an individual, okay, that results, that acts in the form of untouchability is punishable under the law. Clear? So all of these articles, even though the last article, Article 18, okay, talks about the abolishing of titles. Okay, so as to ensure that every individual remains equal in the eyes of law, the Constitution ensures that there has to be no title. A state cannot give an individual any title. Clear? Except the military and educational titles. Okay, so we can see that fundamental rights from Article 14 to 18 have talked about right to equality for the individuals. Clear? Now, along with this right to equality, okay, we have seen the Constitution addressing the same in the DPSPs also. Okay, in the DPSPs also. Now, even though these DPSPs are non-justiciable, okay, you cannot approach any court of law for getting the DPSPs enforced, but these DPSPs, they are also providing the guidelines. They are essentially acting as the sets of instruction for the government, what government must do while making the laws, so that the government ensures social and economic equality in the society. Okay, so if we talk about DPSPs, Article 38 ensures this. Clear? Article 38 instructs the government, okay, the state, to secure a social order for the promotion and welfare of the people. The government must act to minimize inequalities of income, status, facilities and opportunities from the society. Okay, then we have got Article 39, which is talking about, which is directing the state to ensure adequate means of livelihood, equal pay for equal work for men and women, the protection of health of the workers. Okay, the government must ensure that the wealth is not concentrated amongst a few only and it must be equally distributed. Clear? Then Article 46, it promotes the educational and economic interest of the depressed classes and other weaker sections of society and protects them from any form of injustice as well as the exploitation. So we have seen that DPSPs are also talking about the equality in the society. Clear? So our constitution has been working in this direction to ensure that equality is established duly in our society. Clear? Okay. Now, when we talk about the uh, dimensions of equality, now when we talk about the dimensions of equality, okay, now as we have seen the fundamental rights, they are ensuring that legal equality is given to all. Okay, equality is legally entrusted onto the individuals. Clear? Now, Article 14, equal protection of law, the rule of law, they are talking about the legal protection. Clear? Then Article 17, okay, articles like Article 17, they are ensuring social equality. Clear? Then DPSPs, Article 38, Article 39, which are talking about the equitable distribution. Okay, they are talking about the economic equality. Okay, and along with this, when we talk about a very prominent concept like the universal adult franchise, article 326, universal adult franchise, okay, it talks about the concept like the political equality. Clear? So our constitution is addressing all of these measures. Okay, our constitution is ensuring that every form of equality must be practiced in pith and substance, and they are also directing the government to play a prominent role in promoting equality. Clear? So government has been coming up with various welfare schemes, government has been coming up with various legislations, various policies to ensure that equality is floated amongst all the sections of society and is not just concentrated amongst the elites. Clear? Okay, so this is a basic fundamental value that around which this entire topic is revolving. Clear? So first and foremost, before starting off with this topic, I have just given you a basic framework as to what higher level concepts, how the concepts around governance have been actually addressed by this topic. Clear? Now, in this topic, when we start off, we will see various stories have been given. Okay, some short stories, anecdotes have been given to make every student understand the practical nuances of equality as well as inequality which are existing in the Indian society. Clear? Chaliye. So let us start off with this topic now. Let us see that how this topic now deals with this concept of equality. Clear? Chaliye. Now, when we start off with this topic, okay, now this topic essentially takes up an example of the day of election. Okay. Now, India is a democracy. Okay. And in Indian democracy, everyone has the right to choose the leader for himself or herself. Clear? And in this Indian democracy, democracy would not have made any sense if equality would not have been provided to the Indian citizens amongst the Indian individuals. Clear? Now, in this chapter, we will see that why equality is important in the democracy, or how everyone in certain contexts are considered equal. Clear? So first and foremost, this topic of equality starts with the story of Kanta. Okay. Now this starts with the story of Kanta, and Kanta along with a few of her acquaintances. Okay. They are going for casting their votes on election day. Now Kanta and Sujata have been standing in the queue. Okay. And they have been waiting for their turn to cast the vote. Now, when Kanta, while talking to Sujata, when she turns around, she notices that her employer, Jain Saab, is also in the queue. Okay, her employer, Jain Saab, is behind her, waiting for his turn to cast the vote. Now, this is something that encourages Kanta. Okay, Kanta appreciates this thing and she says this to Sujata, that what a good occurrence is this. Okay, all of us, whether we are employers, our neighbors, they are all standing in the same queue to cast their vote. Okay, and they all have equal power, they all have equal rights, they all have equal liberties to cast their vote. Okay, now after casting the votes, okay, after casting the vote, the Kanta and Sujata have been discussing while going home. Okay, now they she tells her friend that her daughter has been ill. Okay, and why she has been ill? Because the area in which they live is not very clean, is not very hygienic. Okay, now in this, since she has to get her daughter treated, she is also planning to take some advance from her employer. Okay, so this is something that creates, okay, an example or a disparity amongst them. Okay, now it was during this time, okay, that while casting the vote, there is one thing that they have noticed is the equal right to vote. Okay, this is something that they have noticed, and all of them see. So even while casting the vote, Kanta had seen that her employer, her neighbor, they are all standing together. So in a democratic country like India, all people above the age of 18 years, okay, they enjoy a constitutional right called the universal adult franchise. Okay, now in this universal adult franchise, people, irrespective of their education, of their income status, their religion, their region, okay, they all are free to cast their votes. Okay, now this is something that we have seen, that irrespective of any disparity, people have the right to vote. Okay, but we can also see that every individual, no matter comes with which what social status, has equal power of vote. Means everyone has got the equal weight, the vote carries equal weight. Clear? Now, even though this was an instance wherein Kanta had greatly appreciated the equality, okay, but there were a few more instances, there were few more things to come wherein Kanta saw that this is something which is not good. Okay, now Kanta had to take her daughter to the doctor. Okay, now she had to take her doctor, she had to take her daughter to the doctor, and since she is coming from relatively a deprived social status, she'll be approaching the government hospital. Okay, now she lives in a slum. Okay, she has a drain behind her house. Her daughter is sick, but she cannot take the day off from work because she has to borrow money from her employer to take her child to the doctor. Now she has been working as a domestic help, okay, something that tires her out, and finally she has to also address to all the demands of her family. Okay, but there is something, there is something that makes Kanta think about inequality. Okay, now she says that since my employer, okay, Jensap, they were standing behind me while I was casting vote. But when I have to go to the hospital to get the doctor, to get my daughter treated from the doctor, I would never find somebody with the same status, economic status of Jain Saab, because they are the ones who have the ways and means wherein they can approach the private hospitals, private doctors, and they need not stand in the queue. So this is something that strikes her mind, that while casting a vote, okay, everyone was equal, but why not while gaining access to the healthcare needs? Okay, so Kanta, like many other people, okay, living in a democratic country, they uh, have various things which make them equal. Okay, but their working conditions, their life conditions, living conditions, they are far different from others. Okay, so apart from being poor, the people in India also face different type of inequalities. Okay, now all of you might have seen a few matrimonial ads in the newspaper. Now, when you come across the matrimonial ads, okay, you will find some striking features. Okay, now when we take an example, okay, alliance invited for a girl, okay, and they specifically say caste no bar, okay, professional qualified girl for Gupta boy, okay, Tamil Brahmin. Now, this is something that is again the other side of the Indian society. Now, this is caste system is another form of inequality in India. Okay. Now, this topic deliberately discusses this thing. Okay. Caste system flourishes in the urban as well as in the rural areas. Okay. If you are living in the rural area, your caste identity is something that you probably have learned or experienced in at a very early age. Okay. If you live in the urban areas, okay, you few people might not be believing in the caste system, but the others are still believing in the caste system, and that is proven by these ads which are there. Clear? So this book again talks about this topic, again talks about another example. Okay. Another example of how discrimination on the basis of caste system works. Okay. Now, there has been a very, very prominent writer, okay, writer on social issues, Om Prakash Valmiki. Okay. Now, Om Prakash Valmiki apparently belonged to the weaker sections, okay, who were referred to as Dalits. Now, he wrote his autobiography by the name Jhoothan, okay, by the name Jhoothan. Now, in this book, in his autobiography, he gives examples how he had to face discrimination while he was studying in the school. Okay, he told that he in this book he writes that he had to sit away from the others in the class, and that too on the floor. There were instances wherein there was no mat and he had to sit on the grounds. Okay, sometimes he had to wait way behind others. Okay, he has to sit right next to the doors. Okay, and people would also the other students would also bully him. Okay, in the school as well as in the other parts. Okay, now in this book he writes, okay, that once he had to face a very specific form of discrimination. Okay, the headmaster asked Om Prakash to sweep the school as well as the entire playground. Now, even though the school and playground they were very large and in comparison to his physique, okay, or what he could handle or what he could clean, okay, but the headmaster made sure that he did so, even though as a child it was his right to study in the school, but instead of he being engaged in studies, he was made to sweep the floor. Okay, the other children were sleeping, were studying while he was sweeping the floor. Okay, and headmaster constantly watched him while he did so. Okay, moreover, he was also not allowed to drink water and he had to sweep the floor the entire day. Okay, the students, the teachers, everyone saw him. Okay, and it was not just for one day but for next couple of days, until his father, while passing across the school, he saw Om Prakash sweeping the floor. Now, this was something that enraged his father, and he then confronted the headmaster and the teachers while walking away, and he told them that if they would not have been his teachers, he would not have spared them. Clear? So, this is something that how he has talked about the discrimination that have been existing in the society. The writer Om Prakash Valmiki talks about his experiences while he was growing up as a Dalit boy. Okay, now along with this, there has been another story that has been shared by the author in this book. Now, this second story is about the discrimination upon the basis of religion. Okay, this story talks about Mr. and Mrs. Ansari who were looking to rent out an apartment in the city. They had the money, they had the means, and paying the rent was never an issue for them. They went to a property dealer for help to find a place. The dealer informed them that he knew about quite a few apartments which were available for renting, and then they started to visit. They visited the first apartment, and the Ansaris, they liked it too much, even though they had the money. But the landlady, when she came across their religious background, she immediately reverted. Okay, she immediately discussed that they could not give this house to people who have different religions, who have different living lifestyles. Okay, now even though they see that these comments which were made upon them, they did not have any base, because the lifestyle that the lady wanted, the lifestyle that the lady was referring to was already being practiced in the society, but specifically because Ansaris belonged to another religion, they were not allowed. Okay, so this was the same excuse, okay, that they had to come across. Okay, not in the first apartment, but also to the second, as well as to the third apartment. Finally, after searching, after hunting for the house for around a month, they were able to gain access to an apartment. Okay, now the Ansaris had took almost a month. Finally, they found out somebody who was willing to give them a place on rent. Okay, so one thing we have understood, that caste we are born into. Okay, the religion we practice, the class, the economic background we come from, okay, the gender we belong to, are often things that determine the unequal treatment or the prejudices that are meted out to the people. In the previous examples, we have seen the example of Om Prakash Valmiki as well as the Ansaris. Okay, now uh, both of these individuals have been treated unequally. Okay, on the basis of their caste as well as the religion. But what is the harm when an individual is treated unequally? So when the persons, okay, even though after accessing, having ways and means are treated unequally, their dignity gets violated. Now, in the previous stories, the previous examples that we had read, the dignity of Om Prakash Valmiki as well as the Ansaris had been violated because of the way in which they were treated. Okay, so Om Prakash Valmiki, who had been a child, okay, was not in a situation that he could do anything unless his father arrived and he ensured that he is no more treated unequally. Okay, now the individuals in the country, they do not deserve to be treated like this. Okay, and irrespective of any background, okay, the individuals deserve same respect and dignity as anyone else. Okay, now when we see, even though I have discussed the same in the starting also, okay, the Indian constitution recognizes every person as equal. Okay, now this basically means that every individual in this entire country, and belonging to any gender, any caste, any religion, any tribe, coming from any educational background, okay, cannot be treated unequally. Okay, and are all recognized as equal. Clear? Now, this is not to say that inequality ceases to exist, but at least in the democratic country like India, the principle of equality ensures that all the persons are recognized. Clear? Now, in this, we have also seen that previously no laws had existed. Okay, there were no laws. Okay, even before the adoption of the Indian Constitution, there were no laws to safeguard people from discriminated and ill treatment. Now there are several laws that work to see that people are treated with dignity and as equals. Clear? So this recognition of equality includes some of the most prominent provisions. Okay, now first provisions, as we have previously discussed also, is every person is equal before the law. Now what does this essentially mean? Okay, it means that every person, from President of India to Kanta to Ansaris to Om Prakash Valmiki, okay, they all are equal and they have to obey same set of laws which are prevalent in the country. Clear? Second, no person can be discriminated against on the basis of their religion, race, caste, place of birth, or whether they are female or male. Clear? So any individual cannot be treated like this. Third, every person has access to all public places, including playgrounds, hotels, shops, and markets. All persons can use publicly available wells, roads, and bathing ghats. Fourth, untouchability has been abolished. Clear? So even though we have touched upon this in the starting, okay, but this is how our constitution ensures these things. Clear? Our constitution ensures that there must be no inequality existing in the society. People must not be discriminated and their dignity must not be violated. Clear? Moreover, along with this, it is not that the Indian constitution has been ensuring these things through laws. Okay, the government programs or the schemes which are also coming up, they are also to support the disadvantaged communities. There are several laws in India that protect every person's right to be treated equally. Okay, moreover, in addition to the laws, the government has also set up several schemes to improve the lives of communities and individuals who have been treated unequally or who are vulnerable sections in the society. Now, these schemes ensure that greater opportunity must be given to people who have not had been treated equally in the society. Clear? Now, the example around this is the midday meal. Okay, now, at times, people say that if such measures have been made in addition to the constitution, are they violative of the constitution? So, clear answer is no, because whatever schemes, whatever policies have come up, okay, they all have come up in congruence to the constitution of India. Moreover, the constitution of India also contains enabling clauses to ensure that the depressed sections, the vulnerable sections of society are are given up the equal treatment in the society. Clear? Now, how do we take up this midday meal scheme? Now, what is this midday meal scheme? Clear? Now, this scheme was introduced in the government schools to provide the children with cooked lunch. Okay. Now, Tamil Nadu was the first state in India to introduce this scheme, and in 2001, okay, later on, the Supreme Court had also asked all the state governments to begin this program in their school within 6 months. Now, this midday meal program has got various positive effects. First and foremost, this includes the fact that more poor children have become enrolling and attending the school regularly. Now, previously, what had happened is, okay, that children would go home for their lunches and they did not return. But after the midday meal schemes, the children now stay in the school, they are provided with the meal, okay, and their attendance has also improved. The mothers who were taking up petty jobs, okay, they had to interrupt their work previously to feed their children at home during the day. Now they can also work freely, they no longer need to do so. Okay, now this midday meal program has also helped the uh, the society to reduce caste prejudices, because children belonging to upper caste as well as the lower caste, okay, they eat their meals together. Okay, moreover, we have seen that people from across all caste, okay, society communities, they are employed as workers in the setup. Okay, so even the women belonging to any section of society, even Dalit women, okay, they have been employed to cook the meal. Okay, so this meal ensures that the hunger of poor students cannot be correlated with their lack of education, because when someone's stomach was empty, they were not able to concentrate. Clear? So similar to this midday meal program, the government has been playing an important role in increasing the equality in the society, but much more is needed to be done. Okay, not just on behalf of the government, even the people must have to come forward. Clear? There have been, we must acknowledge that there are various differences establishing in the society. Okay, there are diversities, inequalities between the rich and the poor attending schools. Okay, and there are several schools in the country wherein the discrimination still exists. Okay, there are incidents wherein the children are forced into unequal situations in which their dignity is not respected, and this is primarily because people refuse to think them as equal, even though the law wants them to think so. Clear? Now, even though this attitude has been changing rapidly, okay, this attitude has been changing rapidly, and it is expected that this discrimination would also be done away in the society. Okay, and it is expected that in the times to come, in the generations to come, the inequalities due to the caste, religion, disability, economic status, they all would end. Okay, but it would only end when people begin to believe that no one is inferior to them, they are not superior to others. Okay, and people must understand that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, everyone deserves to be treated equally. Clear? So equality in a democratic society is a continuous struggle. Okay, and uh, people from all the backgrounds, all the communities have to come forward to ensure that this discrimination is eradicated from the society. Okay. Moreover, even though India is still a developing country, but there have been various developed countries wherein the inequality is still has been existing in the society. Okay, people have been struggling to get equality, equal status. Okay, there are many democratic countries around the world. Okay, where the issue of equality still persists. The communities are struggling and they are approaching to ensure that they are treated equally. For an example, in the United States, the Native Americans, okay, whose ancestors were enslaved by the migrants, they still live a life of inequality. Okay, this is despite the fact that there had been a movement in late 1950s to push for equal rights of African American. Okay, and prior to this, African Americans were treated extremely unequally in the US and they were denied equality through the law. Okay, so there were situations, there were times that while traveling by the bus, okay, the native Africans, now you must understand that this discrimination was primarily upon the basis of their race. Okay, the native Africans, the Native Americans, they had to earlier sit at the back of the bus, okay, or had to get up from their seat whenever a white person has wished to sit over that seat. Clear? So this is something that had existed. Okay, and it had existed until a woman, Rosa Parks, an African American woman, had aimed to change the course of American history. Okay, so she was the one who raised her voice against this discrimination. Okay, she started the civil rights movement. They came against the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and ensured that discrimination on the basis of race, religion, or national origin is prohibited. Clear? So this was something that people had to fight for to ultimately gain the equality for themselves and for their community in the society. Okay, but whenever we have seen various things, we still understand that there are various challenges which are existing in the society. Okay, no country can be described as completely democratic. Okay, there are always communities and individuals who are trying to expand their idea of democracy. Okay, they are fighting for greater recognition of equality. Now, the underlying idea to this is the struggle for recognition for all persons. Okay, every individual wants to be treated equally and they want their dignity to be maintained. Okay, now, even though this is the first topic where we have read about equality, okay, in the upcoming topic we will also read about the issue of equality and how it has affected the aspect of daily lives of people in the democratic India. Okay, so finally, all of us must think, okay, that whether the equality of all persons and their being able to maintain their dignity is being upheld by us or not. Okay, we must introspect and ensure that at least at our individual level, okay, we would never treat anyone unequally. Clear? So this is essentially the message that is being given from this topic. Okay, so I hope all of you would have understood these things. Okay, finally, moving ahead, let me tell you that please do join me on the Telegram channel. On this Telegram channel, I would share all the annotated PDFs of all my sessions, the Smart NCERT series, as well as the current affairs topics that I have been covering. Okay, moreover, let me remind you that the limited period offer, okay, wherein the lowest price drop, okay, the UPSC courses at the StudyIQ IAS, the GS Foundation courses starts at as low as 7,999. Okay, now this offer ends tomorrow, so please do not waste any moment further. Use the code SRM Live to avail this offer and start your UPSC journey in the smartest possible manner with our P2I batches based upon the SMART model of preparation. Clear? So thank you all for joining me in this session. Please do let me know in the comment section in case you have got any doubts. Okay, and do join me daily at 3 p.m. for the Smart NCERT series. Clear? So this was all from my side today. We'll see you.